parts. Run through the path of the Skittles.
Alright, so first you dump the Skittles into the funnel, and they fall down on top of this wheel that spins around, and that's controlled by a servo over here. It spins past a sensor that reads the color, and then after it reads the color, this servo moves an arm, which goes to the corresponding cup of that color, and it rotates again, dropping the Skittle into the cup, or into the arm, and into the cup.
Yep. There's a lot of really cool parts about this. Christian did a lot of the coding and a lot of the like hardware type stuff, and I did a lot of the mechanical type stuff like that. So a lot of the 3D printing, like this is 3D printed, this is 3D printed, and some of these other pieces, and kind of assembling that as well. Can you talk a little bit about how the code works for this? Like just kind of basic stuff.
Well, this sensor reads the color of each Skittle, which is breakdown into 3 primary colors, red, green, blue, and it gives you a range of values for it, for each color, and then you map that on saying if the range of values falls within that, identify the Skittle as green. And if that one's green, the code tells this servo to move to that spot, and then to rotate this. So it's not too hard, but took a little time to figure it out.
All right. So I think now is the moment of truth. I think all you guys want to see some Skittles being sorted. Crossing our fingers, say a couple prayers. Hope this works. All right. All right. So make sure it's centered. All right. So we're gonna put all of them together in one thing, and hopefully they sort out.
Oh.
No Skittles. Skittles.
Oh.
Okay. Christian, hey, you're dropping the ball, man.
There we go. We're having issues right now.
There you go.
There we go.
Keep going.
All right, here we go. Perfect. And so as you can see, it's like a water wheel on the inside. It has a slot for each individual, 4 different spots for Skittles. So as one comes down, another enters in, and it gets read by the sensor, and then it moves. So, and that's the thing. And so we think it's really cool that we can show you this on stage, but we also kind of want to have you guys experience it for yourself. So afterwards, if you guys want to, take some Skittles and sort them for yourself. You guys are open to do that. And this is the Skittle Sorter. Any questions?
Any questions?
So that red piece, how do you go about making something like that?
So, so that red piece took me 2 to 3 days to design, and then probably about a week to upload because it was being difficult. What you have to do with 3D design is you have to take figures that they give you, 3D figures that you give them, and design it on a program. Can I pull up the computer?
Yeah, I'll do it while you're talking.
All right. So what I did first was I designed this little sphere thing, or this little cylinder. I designed that. Then I did another cylinder and subtracted that out of that. Added a little sphere on the end, and then added that together. And it's all adding and subtracting. So imagine you're taking a shape like this, adding this on top, and grouping them together, and now the total object looks like this. But no, I want to also subtract out this mouse from the center, and so now it has a big hole in it, the shape of a mouse. That's kind of the basic thing, and Mr. Burst will give you a much better example
No,
of
you were
that.
doing just fine. I figured it was easier for me to do it while you're
Yep.
talking. You can show them if you
Got
want.
another question?
Follow-up question for Spencer.
Okay, yes.
In what orientation would you print something like that?
Do not print it on its side, because from what I've heard, the printer could go haywire. I don't know that from experience
So
or
they're giving him
anything.
a hard time, but in reality, it's a lot of kind of trial and error that we had to go through to figure this out. And so yeah, there were some printing mistakes along the way. So yeah, so he led a lot. Their group wasn't the only group that did the 3D printer, but they did make good use of it. And so it's kind of really cool to be able to have this idea, like we know we need this part, and then be able to actually build the part from scratch rather than have to rely on where could we buy this particular part. And a lot of these groups are using stuff that you can't just go out and buy somewhere. So it's pretty cool to be able to to build it to your exact specifications.
Just really quick for that funnel piece, if I wanted to make it bigger or whatever, so what I would do is I'd take this smaller funnel I'd place it inside the bigger one. I would push hole, which means subtract, and now it has a hole on the inside. And that's pretty much what I did for this. And guys, let me tell you, being able to use a 3D printer is one of the coolest parts of Physics 1 and Physics 2. You're not going to want to miss it. It's a lot of fun. Another question.
How many bags of skills did you go through testing your project?
See, the thing is the funny thing is me and Christian didn't consume a lot of Skittles at all. I think there was a couple classmates that tested a lot of our Skittles, though.
Quality control.
Yeah, exactly. Question.
How does it read the sensor to tell the colors? Like,
Why don't you tackle that
I don't
one?
understand.
I know I don't answer it, but I answered the
How
last
does
two.
it read yeah, like.
I don't think I have enough one, but the sensor throws out, reads the color in the 3 primary colors, red, green, blue, like the makeup of the Skittle, and prints values, like green is 1900 or something, and we just put the Skittle, if it's in between, green's between 1800, 1900, and the red's between 1200 and 1300, then it's green, and it identifies it as that.
So a little computer chip program that you had to program to do
Yep.
that.
And it lets out a little flash of white light. And so this flash of white light, and then it reads what reflects. Because certain colors are absorbed and certain reflect. And then it will do some scientific calculations with that stuff. And it will say, oh, that's an orange Skittle.
Very cool. Thank you.
Question?
What would happen if 2 Skittles were fused together?
We have yet to have that
Probably
problem.
get jammed.
So just to be clear, so when you're measuring the color, it doesn't actually tell you like red, purple, whatever. It actually is like a sequence of numbers.
Yeah.
And then you had to make a code.
Saying if it's in a certain range of numbers, then yeah, it's.
I'm curious, how consistent are they? Like a purple Skittle, like how much can it vary?
It
Like
went
1 to 200 off for each range of color. About.
like the one that we had. We were testing them like 3 days ago, and I think it was I'm gonna say just for orange. It had like red. The first one we had was like, let's just say 1,000, and the next one would be like 1,050. Like, and so each of these values kind of go like that. They're not exactly the same each one because each one does have a little bit of different color, but they're probably within the ballpark of 100, 250, yeah.
So they're fairly close.
And don't you think that would, honestly, from a completely different look at it, don't you think from the candy company's aspect that they'd want it to be as consistent and close as possible?
Yeah.
Because if you start seeing weird colors.
Yeah. My 2 cents is that it's probably like, one of them was completely perpendicular and the next one was slightly tilted or whatever, and the light reflected.
Oh, I see.
And also the Skittle thing is a different color. The S is white, and the regular Skittle is purple or something.
Can you show Mr. Haynes since he just walked in real quick?
My apologies for being late.
No problem. It's just you get 3 tardies, so you're good. Yep. Make sure it's lined up. All right. All right. So here's our big thing of Skittles.
And how many of the pieces that are part of that were made on the 3D printer?
So the funnel was from my cupboard. My mom doesn't know, so don't tell her. This was 3D printed, this funnel right here. This water wheel was 3D printed. This center piece was 3D printed, and this base funnel was 3D printed.
Very cool.
Did you measure the rate? Like how many can it sort like per hour or whatever?
Yeah, no, we didn't do that.
We kind of figured that you're not going to be eating like thousands of Skittles, hopefully. So.
Yeah, I got purple and purple and green, so.
Yep. Any questions from the 8th graders or from Mr. Van Norman?
How much code did it take?
Ted said his was like 8 pages yesterday, and all together it was like 3. So it wasn't too bad. It was just figuring out how everything worked together was the difficult part. Yeah. Anything else?
Anything else?
I think one thing that I think is cool about this one, you don't really realize it because this all happens kind of seamlessly. But you have not only do you have that color sensor, but you have 2 motors that are running there too. One to turn the wheel and one to turn the arm, and they all have to mesh together too. So.
Yeah.
All right,
Well, nice job.
Make room for the triple threat glasses.
I want to clear that whole thing off.
Yeah, the triple that's a big deal. And we'll leave these up here for afterwards. Take a small handful.
You can come up and take a closer look.
All right.
Wasn't that cool?
Thank you for the invite.
Did you record that whole thing?
Yeah.
Can you like